Not the happiest subject to start with, obviously, because, clearly all the talk is about this latest tragedy, predictable tragedy in Colorado, right? Talk to us a minute just about the red flag laws failing to, this guy apparently legally purchased this AR-15. Just talk to us about your initial thoughts on what's happened.
Yeah, so red flag laws allow law enforcement authorities to temporarily seize weapons from somebody if they believe that person poses a demonstrable danger to others. You know, what we are learning in the aftermath of the Club Q shooting is that this gunman apparently had made bomb threats. He was charged with kidnapping and menacing. Yeah. Now, what I have seen reported is those charges were dropped, and apparently the record was sealed. So whether this was truly a failure of red flag laws or not, we'll have to wait to hear more about that. But this is all about guns. It's not about mental health. It's not about, frankly, red flag laws. It's all about guns. And the Republicans, as we know, will continue to worship at the altar of virtually unrestricted access to weapons of war, assault rifles, and they'll continue to let the blood money flow into their campaign coffers until we rise up and say we're not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been at the, let's talk about that real quick. You've been at the Oath Keepers trial. You said Oath Keepers case is finally to the jury. So what does that mean? Just update us on where we are. This is the Stewart Rhodes trial, right?
Yes, so Stewart Rhodes and 4 of his fellow Oath Keepers are on trial for seditious conspiracy and 7 other felonies, basically for trying to violently stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. So closing arguments finished up yesterday. The jury will begin deliberating today. I don't expect we're going to see verdicts anytime soon because the trial ran about 7 weeks. I attended the whole thing. So the jury has a lot of evidence to go through. But what I will say, Steph, is the evidence of guilt of these defendants is overwhelming. That doesn't guarantee a conviction because the defense attorneys did their best to engage in some misdirection and dumb down a lot of the evidence in their closing arguments. I think the jury will see right through it, and I think probably shortly after the holiday, we'll begin to see the jury delivering some verdicts. I will warn everybody, I tried a big RICO case with 6 defendants, and what the jurors did is they would decide all of the charges against one defendant. They would come out, announce those verdicts. They would go back and keep deliberating, and deliberations and verdicts took about a month in that case. Yeah. So we still may be in for the long haul here.
Yeah. So Riley Williams, the Pennsylvania woman who barged into Nancy Pelosi's office, was found guilty of multiple counts that she faced Monday. What's your impression in general of how obviously we're going to get to the whole up to the big kahuna, but what's your impression of how it's going so far against the, as you would call them, what do we call them? Not the suits, the boots on the ground.
These are the boots of the insurrection. Yeah. These are the ones who acted on Donald Trump's command to attack the Capitol. And all of the boots are being convicted. To a defendant, Steph, every single insurrectionist who's gone to trial in front of a jury has been convicted. My friends and former colleagues at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office are in court every day across multiple courtrooms in court, prosecuting these people, convicting these people. And, we do have to work our way up to the suits, but I actually think we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the dozens and dozens and dozens of federal prosecutors who are representing we the people extraordinarily well in these prosecutions.
Yeah. So let's get to the big question, because we've been flailing without you, as you know, ever since the appointment of Jack Smith, who apparently is not the guy in the Matrix. If he puts on sunglasses, I think he is Agent Smith, but no, it's a different guy. Different guy. Okay. But, Glenn, I think it was Barb McQuaid I saw on TV first that said, the Justice Department wouldn't be doing a special prosecutor if they weren't going to indict, if they were going to decline. So, and then everyone from to Ellie Mistal was like, this is, and I know Joe Weinbanks initially said this is a waste of time and money. And you and I have been obviously impatient for justice for a long time, and my first thought is, why isn't it indictments? Why is it, yet another step? But it takes me a second to calm down, but
just a little.
But I think we all have Mueller fatigue, right? We think, oh God, are we starting all over again? Blah blah blah. But a lot of people have pointed out how Lawrence Tribe and others that they think this will speed it up and not slow it down. Dying to get your take on it, because I do get that it's different. Bill Barr's not in charge. It's not Trump's Justice Department. He is not starting from scratch. But give us your whole overview on this.
Yeah, Steph, I wish we had an hour. There's so much to unpack. And we have superhero fatigue. We thought Bob Mueller was going to come in and take Trump out. His report did take Trump out. The problem is Congress and the Department of Justice didn't act on the crimes that Bob Mueller documented in Volume 2 of the Trump-Russia report. We thought Merrick Garland was going to come in and do what was necessary. It turns out, in hindsight, Merrick Garland turned out to be too much judge and not enough prosecutor. So I am not prepared to say Jack Smith is galloping in on the white horse and he's going to take care of all this. However, first thing I did was I talked to all my friends and former colleagues who worked with or for Jack Smith. I don't know Jack personally. To a person, they cannot speak highly enough of his determination to hold criminal politicians accountable without regard to politics or criticism or fear of failure. Here's why I really like the appointment of Jack Smith. We can do an autopsy on whether Merrick Garland should have appointed a special counsel. There are good arguments on both sides, but I think at the bottom of it all, once Trump announced he was a candidate, let's face it, Merrick Garland is Joe Biden's attorney general. So to have Joe Biden's attorney general going after Joe Biden's only announced political opponent in the 2024 election, I believe left Merrick Garland no other choice but to appoint a special counsel. So Jack Smith, when he was head of the public integrity section at the Department of Justice, where lots of my friends work, he took on cases like Republican Congressman Rick Renzi from Arizona, who his prosecutors convicted of racketeering, bribery, extortion. He took on a Democrat senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez, and that ended in a hung jury. I'll come back to that in a second. He took on Republican Governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. That ended in convictions, although later on the Supreme Court overturned those convictions. Not a failure by Jack Smith and his team. It's a failure by the Supreme Court because they wanted to cut back on the Department of Justice's ability to go after high government officials for corruption. That's a Supreme Court failure, and I think we've seen the Supreme Court fail ever since. He also went after a Democrat, Senator John Edwards, for campaign finance crimes. That resulted in a hung jury. So he won some political cases, he lost some political cases, but he did it all without fear or favor or the possibility that he would lose and be criticized. Steph, give me that kind of prosecutor on my team every day. Somebody who goes against Republicans and Democrats without fear or favor and is not afraid of failure. That's who I want on my team. Let me add, he also went after a CIA officer for mishandling classified information. How might that experience come in handy? And then he's been a war crimes prosecutor going after some of the world's most egregious criminals, and that is great, relatable experience because, let's face it, he is now going after one of the world's most egregious criminals.
See, you've activated my daddy gene, my daddy issues again. I mean, that's obviously coming from The Hague. You're like, well, I like that. So what is it? I think it was Lawrence Tribe that said he thought this actually sped things up because he's joining, in progress. What do you think that means? Someone was saying that's more when you're wrapping up rather than, that he's not starting from scratch, right?
Yeah, they brought in not only Jack Smith, but David Raskin, one of our premier national security and terrorism prosecutors. You do not put these people on a case to decline to bring an indictment. You put these people on the case to indict. I was concerned at first. My gut reaction is, here we go again. Will this delay matters? Because when Bob Mueller was appointed, remember, Steph, he was appointed from jump. There was no ongoing criminal investigation. He had to create it out of whole cloth. Hire agents, hire prosecutors, hire a staff, stand up in office, and then begin investigating and possibly prosecuting. Jack Smith, his very appointment is take over these ongoing investigations and move forward. And that's what Jack Smith is doing. Merrick Garland, I think, engaged in too much analysis paralysis. I still maintain he's a good honest, honorable person. Yeah. But he was, 24 years a judge, and before that a prosecutor. I think he lost his prosecutorial instincts. If there's one thing you cannot say about Jack Smith is that he's lost any prosecutorial instincts. Yeah. He is all prosecutor. I think things will accelerate now. At least that's my hope.
Okay. I was curious your thoughts on Bill Barr chiming in that Donald Trump is, in his opinion, indictable. Your thoughts?
Bill Barr says he's indictable and he'd still vote for him. What does that tell you about Bill Barr? Bill Barr loves supporting abject criminals. That man is unworthy of even a moment of consideration by us.
He's a trash person.
Yes, he is.
Garbage person, yes. You tweeted, Congress, if you're listening, it's time for an investigation. I'd fashion it an impeachment inquiry of Justice Alito. His lies to the Senate, to the American people, and to the late Senator Ted Kennedy must be investigated because women's constitutional rights matter. I got to get your take on this latest bombshell report about Justice Alito leaking.
Yeah, the New York Times, made it pretty clear in its reporting, I think 2 days ago. A couple, Mr. and Mrs. Wright, had dinner with another couple, Mr. and Mrs. Alito, and the next day, Mrs. Wright contacted this Reverend, Schenck is his name, and said, I've got some very interesting information. No emails, please. And then she told him that basically Alito authored the Hobby Lobby opinion, another opinion that basically is religion over the rule of law, and that Hobby Lobby is going to win. So Alito leaked his own opinion, the Hobby Lobby opinion. Don't you think he probably also leaked the Dobbs opinion, revoking women's constitutional privacy rights?
Yeah, and then acted all huffy about it.
Right.
The Democrats on the House and Senate Judiciary demanded Sunday that John Roberts comply with their investigation into the court's refusal to abide by ethics laws. Sheldon Whitehouse was, of course, one of the authors of the letter. Again, I know you've said this before, but why aren't we? Why does it feel like Democrats are reticent, particularly when you see this, complete bull? Pardon my language, about Hunter Biden investigations, Dr. Fauci, and God knows what else. Why are we not opening impeachment inquiries into Alito and Thomas as it regards January 6th?
I can't answer that question because we have had, women most directly, have had constitutional rights revoked, clawed back, and the Supreme Court has virtually announced it's preparing to revoke more of our constitutional rights. I don't understand why we don't open an investigation into that, but it looks like, Steph, thanks to Senator Whitehouse's letter yesterday to Chief Justice Roberts, it feels like maybe the Senate Judiciary Committee is now on that path. Let's support them. Let's keep screaming about the need for these hearings.
Yeah,
because we can't just sit back and let them revoke our constitutional rights.
Ask John Roberts, by the way, how's that leak investigation going?
Yeah.
About Dobbs. How's that? How's that looking?
Yeah.
You also tweeted Cassidy Hutchinson and Mike Flynn testify to Georgia grand jury about Trump's election crimes. What can we expect from each witness? I mean, here we are with the same, question. Georgia is now Jack Smith with either espionage or sedition. Like which wheel of justice is going to go first, right?
Yeah, now that Jack Smith is on the case, I think we've talked about this 100 times, and I go back and forth about who might drop the first indictment on Donald Trump's head. I'm thinking Jack Smith is going to be so concerned about the national security implications of what Donald Trump did in the stolen classified documents case that if I had to bet my betting limit, I would bet a buck on that now being the first indictment to drop. But Fani Willis is methodically working through everything, so we'll see.
Yeah.